Okay, now I have to change my whole beginning of the talk because of that song. What I got to say is, please, everybody, that feeling, please know that there is a presence that loves you that much. Okay? As soon as, before you were even born, when you were just a spark in the mind of the divine loved you. Because you are perfect in your imperfectness and give great delight to all that is. And your place in the universe is sacred, holy, and awesome. You know? Right? Now, that song just, went straight to my heart. I had to speak to it. When really what I wanted to do was come out here and say, I am here to make mischief today. Ministers are supposed to lift you up. Well, they're also supposed to poke you with a sharp stick. Just in case you're feeling complacent, they're also here to rattle your cage. After all, if my cage gets rattled by life, I like to pass that on. I've been studying this book, the Book of Joy, and for people who ordered it, it's on order. It'll come in a few days, which has been a delightful thing to study because this Book of Joy is about the meeting of the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And the chapter I was focusing on, I love the title of the chapter, The Meeting of Two Mischievous People is Wonderful. So that's my goal, to make mischief, to channel the love, compassion, wisdom, in the best of my humble ability, of the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop. So I want to channel their love, and I also want to open up, those cans where you think they're peanuts, but a giant, whatever, exploding worm comes out. That's what I want to do. You can let me know how I was. The Dalai Lama, part of his wisdom is he says, it is not possible for everyone to be Christian or Buddhist. There's no choice but for followers of the world's religions to accept the reality of other faiths, live together, respect, admire. There's nothing wrong with the faiths. There are sometimes problems with the faithful, right, in the world, especially when we cling to our way, when we know the right way, and we do not open up to all the multitudes of ways that other people are alive in their spiritual evolution. Now, when asked a question, when Douglas Abrams was asking the Dalai Lama, well, okay, tell me, how do you speak to intolerance and fanaticism? And His Holiness, the DL, I'm just going to call him the DL. His Holiness, the DL, says that education and wider contact are the only solutions. So, wider contact. So don't be with your own group of people, as comfortable as that is. And the most interesting thing is when people first started studying happiness and decided which country was the happiest, well, interestingly enough, one of the countries, it might have been Norway, one of those countries up there around Norway was the most happy, and it's because they actually have a very homogeneous population. So and there's other reasons too, like they have, good. They all pay good taxes and they share and stuff like that. But part of the reason they're happy is because they're very homogenous. It's just happened, Well, we live in a country that's not so homogenous, even though I know me, mostly I hang around with the Indian people. I actually have to force myself to go out and make my world wider. Roland, my husband, he likes to travel. He feels like going to a different country is the ticket. And I will admit that has definitely blown my mind. It's opened a few can of worms in my mind to go to different countries, and you see that living another way is okay. Like the way we live is not the only way, and it's not the only happy way. So that's what almost everybody in the world kind of loves the Dalai Lama. There's something about him. He exudes such a presence of love. He exudes almost more Divine Mother than any mother I know. You know, he really exudes that I love you no matter what. I'm here to support you, and I expect you to be great. You know, I know you will be great. You have it in you to be great. People love him. And when he says these things like this, we want to listen to him. In fact, the Dalai Lama, since he was a 3-year-old, he was raised quite formally when they took him from his family and said, you are now this, you are now the reincarnated leader of this in Tibet. And he said this formality ended when he became a refugee. Since I became a refugee, I have been liberated from the prison of formalities, so I became much closer to reality. So the fact that his beautiful, ordered world was completely turned on its head and he became a refugee was looked on as a freedom for him and an escape. The person who wrote this book, who interviewed the two of them, Douglas Abrams, had a story about he had twin daughters. There was a traumatic birth. One of the twins was fine, and the other one had an APGAR of 1, which is, barely breathing. They brought the crash cart in, and they told the mother to speak to the baby because the voice of the mother she should recognize that, even in the operating room. This is what Douglas Abrams said. We waited for the longest moments of our lives. In a moment of unspeakable joy, Eliana sputtered, breathed, and cried. But here's the part that I really liked about this story. After all of that happened, and they were premature, so they were in the neonatal unit, I don't think they call them bassinets. They were in one of those plastic things together. And he went and looked at them, and the two little preemie babies were holding hands. This is what I want to talk about, okay? I wasn't lucky enough to be a twin, but I can always find somebody, to hold my hand. I can pretty much always find somebody who will hold my hand when I need it. And that's what I want to kind of get for us. I want us to get it, embody it, and I want us to not only be the one reaching out for the hand, but to more and more be the person looking around saying, hey, I think I need to hold your hand for a bit, metaphorically, even physically, what it is. Now, they continued to have their conversation, and the DL says it's biology. All mammals, including humans, have a special bond with their mother. And I wanted to highlight this discussion. They agree on a lot of things, but they also disagree on some things. And they disagreed on the fine point of whether Hitler's mother loved him or not. I thought that was kind of interesting. So Dalai Lama says it's biology. Without the mother's care, the youngster will die. So if you're alive, your mother must have loved you. Okay? So even though you remember the worst mother ever, if you're alive, she loved you somewhat. Now, this is what the Archbishop says. Even if they don't die, they can grow into a Hitler because they have this huge sense of lack. So, he's talking about people who did not get what they needed when they were babies. I think when Hitler was very young, the Dalai Lama countered, he also was the same as the other children. So this was the first time they were disagreeing. I think his mother showed affection to him, or he would have died. Family members recount that Clara Hitler was indeed a devoted mother, although Hitler's father apparently was allegedly abusive. So the Dalai Lama continued, even today, these terrorists also received maximum affection from their mothers. So even these terrorists deep inside. So I want you to imagine both points of view. So here's the point of view that everybody, no matter how heinous the things they're doing. And, we don't have to look far to find examples, right? This is also a reality talk. Somewhere they had some love. So somewhere there might still be love calling to love inside. That's what the Dalai Lama says. Now, I think I have to take issue with you on that, the Archbishop says. The people who go around becoming bullies are people who have a massive sense of insecurity, who want to prove that they are somebody because they did not get enough love. I think, yes, circumstances, environment, education all matter, the Dalai Lama replied. Especially today, there is not much focus on inner values. Then instead of inner values, we become self-centered, always thinking, I. A self-centered attitude brings a sense of insecurity and fear. With a self-centered attitude, you become distanced from others, then distrust, then feel insecure, then fear, then anxiety, then frustration, then anger, then violence. So, from a slightly different point of view, they're both talking about how much we do need love, and however we find ourselves in our life today, no matter what we got, we can still, here's what I'm saying, we can still reach out our hand and find, if not our twin, we can find somebody who will be there to love us. Now, why is this important or valuable? Well, the reason I focused on this part of the book, I'm going to I can't read the whole book to you. I'm going to just pick out the parts that have meaning to me. I thought that I loved that His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop Desmond Tutu can disagree with love and respect. Seems like a very important example. And then ask yourself right now, what is my choice now, whether or not my mother loved me enough or the way I wanted? In this present, what is my choice now? And let's go back over all these points with some metaphysical questions related to ourselves. Okay? I want to go back over the last 2 or 3 things I said and do our lovely unity trick of looking beyond the physical and relating it to each of us personally. So, there's nothing wrong with faith. The problem is the faithful. The DL, education and wider contact are the only solutions to intolerance. How about this? How can you use this in your life out there? And I'm speaking to you. Ask yourself this question. Am I holding on to any beliefs with a narrow view when a wider view would lift me to a greater perspective of understanding and compassion? Well, yes, I have a few things I'm holding on to. Here's another quote. Since I became a refugee, I have been liberated from the prison of formality. So I became much closer to reality. How can you use this in your life, this phrase? Since I became a refugee, I have been liberated from the prison of formality. I became much closer to reality. So, everybody, what country are you, just think about this, what country are you a refugee from? Is it the country of the past? I get caught up in my past. Is it the country of the way things should be? Oh my gosh, do I get caught up in the way I think things should be? Am I caught up in that country? Have I ever been a prison of formality or form? Am I invested in a formality or a form? Now, I have a great movie to show you. I'm going to turn the lights off because my super awesome team is going to show this movie for us. And it's a great movie. It's only 3 minutes, so it says a lot in 3 minutes.
The wonderful part about nature being fractal is that we can use patterns in nature to understand other patterns that exist because patterns repeat themselves. So now if you want to look at a pattern that's playing itself out on this planet right now that will give us insight about what is going on. So I say, look inside a caterpillar that's growing. And a caterpillar represents, let's say, 7 billion cells living under the same skin. Each cell is a citizen. And guess what? They're like people like us. They're working every day. Cells in the digestive system are taking the food and breaking it down and making products out of it. Some cells are the motility cells. Those are the cells that move the caterpillar around. The structures of like our highways with trucks and vehicles carrying materials all over the place, something like that. Cells of the immune system are taking their job of protecting the system. Respiration system is making sure fresh oxygen is being delivered. So all the cells have jobs. The caterpillar's growing. If you were in there and a reporter, you look around going, yeah, the economy is going great guns. It's growing every day. Everybody's working, full employment. This is the kind of thing we love to see. How much are we growing every day? Some percent every day. And then the caterpillar reaches a certain stage of growth. And at that stage of growth, it just stops eating. It can't take in anymore at this point. It's reaching a maximum size. Then if you're a cell inside that community, imagine what would happen. That you're on the job and all of a sudden there's less food coming in and you're a digestive cell and you say, well, man, the work is slowing down here. The factory is slowing down. Then all of a sudden it gets to such a low level that many cells get laid off of the job. Now their cells not working. Why? There's not enough food coming in to keep them all working. And as the food shuts down, then the other jobs are affected because if there's no food, then there's no energy. And all the systems start laying off cells. And pretty soon, there's massive chaos under the skin of a caterpillar. Why? The systems stop growing, the cells are out of work, nothing is evolving, and the thing is falling apart. If you were a cell in that caterpillar body at that time, you would look around and say, oh my God, our world is coming to an end. And yet, in the midst of those billions of cells, in among them are other cells genetically identical to them, no different. But they think differently. They respond to the signals differently. These cells have the interesting name called imaginal cells. And these imaginal cells come up with new visions. And what happens is, in the midst of all this chaos, when all the other cells are running around thinking the end of the world is coming, the new imaginal cells are laying out new ideas, new visions, a new plan, a new scheme, a new way of life. And around these ideas, the cells reorganize, and they start to create new massive organizations to create something much more fabulous than the previous system. A system that is much more sustainable, a system with a higher level of evolution. And that system they're constructing called the butterfly. So there's a transition from an old world of caterpillar with an old belief system and an old way of life that was no longer sustainable. And therefore, you have two choices in this world right now. You can retain your caterpillar status and go, oh my God, the sky is falling, and be in fear. Or you can say, the caterpillar is going, I want to build the butterfly. Why? Because if I become active and, positive in the process of building the butterfly, I'm engaged, I'm working, we're creating the future. If I sit there and bemoan the loss of the caterpillar, then I'm making myself sick and everything around me. Why? I'm not contributing to our evolution. And so, where are we? We're at the demise of the caterpillar stage of civilization and the rise of the butterfly. The wonderful part about
I'm bemoaning the death of the caterpillar lately, and I would much rather be creating the butterfly. Moving from, let's just be right up front. I've been way too much time complaining or being irritated by the way the world is, or our country's government, or people hurting each other, seemingly like the systems that I trust are falling apart. Okay? So I'm not happy. I'm sick. Okay, I'm done with bemoaning that. And I am ready to be a part of the new butterfly, the society that we are creating now in our country, in our city, but really most importantly, quite frankly, in this community, and also myself personally, my own spiritual evolution. Hey, I often feel as if I'm a dead caterpillar and I haven't quite emerged to the butterfly. So my spiritual evolution personally, and this awesome group of people that we have here. A few of us are in the room now. Our greater community comes in Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and more people on Sunday when they're not taking their mom out to brunch. All of us. So, that is exciting to me. I see a vision when I'm walking with my inner DL and my inner Archbishop. I see a vision. We are attracting people here who want to evolve spiritually. All kinds of people, not just the people just like us. People who express different opinions and have different expressions and different perspectives. But people who agree on the value of humanity, people who want to keep creating a supportive, welcoming spiritual community where we can teach our children our shared value of humanity, the worthiness of each one. I see new forms of learning, of worship, of communicating, of praying, of meditating, of coming together in community. I see our community extending outward to be a presence in Des Moines. You know, more than just having a table at a pancake breakfast. More and more things, that we are a presence of compassion and wisdom and a presence of joy. Let's take an offering for unity. I invite you to take your tithe, your love offering,